So our speaker today is Mitch Welin. He is from ComRes. He's also known ComRes Inc. He's also known as Mr. Technology. He is the owner and has been since 1988. Um, his company provides phone systems, phone and computer cabling, surveillance camera, and card readers. He has about 15 employees, and they are based in Deerfield Beach. They also have customers that are nationwide. He's been a JA board member for about 10 years, and he has been married for 33 years, has 2 sons at the age of 30 and 22. As you can also tell, he is a Miami Dolphins fan. Fins up. So let's give a warm welcome to Mitch today as he starts his presentation. Go ahead, Mitch.
All right. Well, very good. Welcome, guys. They asked what we wanted to talk about today, and I chose conflict resolution. I feel I'm kind of an expert at it, so I'm going to try to advance the slides here. I'm learning Zoom with you guys as well. As Fabio's introduced me, and Brianna we've been in business for 32 years. We got about 15 employees. I'm in the telecom industry, which means I do hosted VoIP phone systems, cabling, things like that. I've been married for 33 years, and if you knew my wife Maggie, you'd understand I'm an expert at conflict resolution. So this is one of the things that we all learn, and it doesn't matter if you're in a family, in a work environment. It's one of the things we look at. And one of the background items here is in 2016, we read a book called Traction, written by Gina Whitman. And this book introduces what they call EOS, or the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's a way of running companies. And so we made a major stride when we implemented EOS and Traction within our company. The first year we increased our sales 40%. And we've continued to increase them each year, and we fixed a lot of problems in our company. And one of the tenets of EOS Traction is having what's called core values. So some of our core values is that we're knowledge oriented. The people that work here, they're always struggling to learn. We always want to learn something new. And in technology, you can never learn enough. There's something to learn every day. We're hardworking, so we're task oriented. We're customer service oriented. But one of ours is that we're family oriented as well, which means we kind of work as a team. And we need to get along, but there's always conflict there, and it should be healthy. Conflict is normal, as we'll talk about. But I wanted to give you some background on this. Traction is a very good book to read if you ever think about running a company. It's a good way to do it. The one thing we're going to talk about is what types of conflict are there. So there's a lot of different types of conflict, and this is the part where I don't know if you guys want to chat in or things like this, but what are different types of conflict? What I'm going to be talking about today can help you out with any part of your life. I'm not bragging here, but basically in the next 45 minutes, I'm going to give you tools that cost me well over $100,000 to get. These are things I hired consultants to do, marriage counselors, years of experience. These are things and tidbits I've learned through the years. Some of it's from the book Traction. Some of it's from my marriage counseling. Some of it's life experience with ComRes, with my family. But these are things, if you learn them now, you're going to be able to take them out, and you'll use these skill sets in your own family. So think about your own family. Like, you can even chat here online and say, like, what are some examples of conflict you have within your own family? If you have a job, chat in some of the things that, conflicts that you have, like maybe a boss or another employee that you can't get along with. Maybe it's a relative. Maybe it's a friend. It's typical. Kids can be really rough on each other, and friends say bad things about each other sometimes. We're enemies and things like that. So what are these types of conflict? So I don't mind hearing back. This is meant to be a little bit interactive. But typically in conflict, you got two people that don't disagree or don't agree on something, or they say something that somebody else says. So Fabi and Brianna, I'm kind of looking at you. If there's a chat window, I don't really see it here. So if they chat anything, just let me know if people are putting some things in, because I want you guys to be thinking about this. And we'll even, if you give me some examples, we even kind of talk through this, and we might even open it up to some role play. So let's move on here. So these next slides are a couple of excerpts from the book Traction by Gina Whitman, and it talks about conflict in the workplace, because today we're talking about career bound and what are some skill sets that we look for in employees? Well, as I talked about, we have these core values. So when we interview people, we're never going to find people with the right experience to do the job in telecom. We'll have to train them. What I'm more interested in is, do they fit our core values? Do they like to learn? One of our core values, as I said, is knowledge oriented. One of them is customer service oriented. Do they want to work hard for customers? Do they want to put a customer's needs above their own? It's one of the typical questions I ask in an interview is, give me an example of some time at 4:55 in the afternoon, right before you got off, a customer called and had a tough project that they need you to solve. And tell me how you did that. Would I be able to talk to that customer if you gave me that as a reference? Because I want that type of person. The person that checks out at 5 o'clock won't make it at ComRes. But also, I'm looking for family-oriented people. I'm looking for people that have had conflict. How do you resolve it? It's not normal to not have conflict. Some people say, hey, I never fight. That's not normal. Somebody that doesn't have conflict or they avoid it, that's the people we avoid. Right here from the book, it says some people are great at avoiding conflict in the workplace. All you need to do is keep your mouth shut and yield to the strongest voice in the room. You work for the federal government, you work for a large company, that's probably it. You're paid to kind of toe the line. In small companies, that's not the way it works. Usually we're looking for people to stick up for their rights and say, look, I need this, or this is not being done the right way. We have an unhappy customer. We need to do something to fix this. I'm having a problem with Bob. I need him on my team, but he's fighting everything I say. Conflict is normal. Healthy conflict in the workplace is risky. It makes us uncomfortable, tense. These are things in a home too. Think about this. When you have conflict in the home, maybe you're fighting with a sibling, maybe you're fighting with your parents, maybe you're fighting with a friend from school or the neighborhood. This is normal, but it's also the sign of people that are intelligent, creative, they're passionate about what they want. In the workplace, you don't want to crush people with passion. You want people to have emotions and to have a fire for your company. So it's not unavoidable in a healthy organization. It's kind of essential, as the book Traction talks about. So learning how to handle conflict is really key here. Do we have any questions at this point? Any comments or examples?
So there's a question that asks, what conflicts currently do you face?
What conflict do I currently face? So I have some in my job. So I have 15 employees. So I have an admin, for example, who is key. I have 3 admins, and one of them is very fiery. And she's a person that doesn't really like people. She's very good at her job, uh, and she does a great job, but she also has to interface with her technicians for dispatching them to say, hey, you need to be on site at ABC company at 10 o'clock in the morning, or you need to go pick up these parts at the office before you go to ABC company. She also has to deal with customers, but because she doesn't really like people, she's not a really good people person. So when she talks to people or when she emails them, it kind of sounds more like commands. And so we've had several issues to where we've had to pull her in. And we'll kind of talk about that today, the healthy way to do this in the workplace. But it's causing problems in my company, and she knows it. And so do other people, but we're also a very open environment. So when we have issues and conflicts like this, we pull people in, and I'll probably use that one as an example with this person because it's a key employee. I'll be very honest with you. The world, the way we kind of see things, the world sometimes is we're all about trying to make things more fair. Life doesn't work like that. Life isn't fair. And so we treat people differently. Like if this person was not a good employee, I would have terminated them, but this person is invaluable and they have great skill sets. So for that reason, I want to work out the conflicts between her and the other people so that she can be a productive member of the team. But I've got to measure that within my company to make sure that she doesn't destroy this family and teamwork atmosphere that we have.
Okay, another question that we have here is,
Sure.
how do you teach employees to handle different personalities?
Well, we don't. And that's a good question. Some people do. Part of it you get through talking together, and we're going to cover that in one of the ideas in how conflict resolution is handled in the workplace, but it will work with any personality. But if you start getting granular, then we become psychiatrists or psychologists, and you're like, are we dealing with a type A or type B personality? Are they, if you look at a PSI chart or something like that, it's helpful. That's more advanced stuff as you've been in the workplace a while and start knowing more about psychology. But I'm not quite sure that you need to know that at this level. The main thing is learning how to listen to people and to hear their side of it. So it won't, if you do that, it doesn't really matter what type of personality set that they have. Other questions?
None so far.
Okay. But great questions. Again, this is just another excerpt from the book Traction. It talks about when you're working on conflict resolution. Face it, we don't know everything. We're not that smart. You got to put your ego aside. And you've got to work with people, and don't make conflict about you. Realize it's sometimes about the other person. When there's conflict, when even in your own family, like if mom or dad come home and yell at you because the garbage wasn't taken out, realize this may not be about you. Some of you may have been the J world already. You realize that your parents have a tough job. And so they might be worried about getting fired. They might have been just chewed out by their boss. There could have been something going on that you don't know about. So sometimes conflict isn't about you. And so you have to kind of like realize this in conflict resolution to really hear what's going on. I'll give a good example of this. A long time ago, I heard a great analogy. Would be if you're at the gas station and you know, a an a healthy emotional person is at the gas station. You're filling your car with gas, and you get done, and then you start. Maybe you're looking for the next music on your playlist or something like that. The guy behind you starts beeping the horn and yelling at you and saying, "You idiot! How inconsiderate of you that you sat there. I'm waiting to fill my car with gas." The healthy person looks at that person and just is kind of amused and goes, okay, I guess they're having a bad day, waves at them, says sorry, and they move on. An unhealthy person gets emotionally involved in it. They make it about them. And they either say, oh my gosh, they're right. I'm so inconsiderate. How stupid of me. Or they start yelling back like, no, you're the idiot. They make it about themselves rather than the other person. Healthy conflict is about realizing the other person has really got the issue sometimes. So don't make it your own. Attack the issue and never each other. This is very important, is when you're dealing with conflict resolution, get to the core of what's going on. If somebody says, hey, I don't like, I don't like your hairstyle. Okay, what you might hear is they don't like me as a person. That's not what they said. And find out what the real issue is. Or I don't like the way that you cleaned your room. Okay, well that's a little bit different. I don't like the way that you put the merchandise out on the rack in the store. Okay, find out what the real issue is, and then take a break. And this is important. You're gonna hear this over and over. Take a breath at times. Count to 10, count to 3, whatever it takes. Is sometimes the best thing to do, like the gas station example I gave, is take a second. Like somebody yells at you at the gas station, you're taking too long, you're inconsiderate, why don't you move your car? Silently count to 3, silently count to 10, and either then don't respond or think about your response. People that react, that causes conflict, because now you've taken what could have been a small issue and made it much larger. So learn to take breaks when there's conflict. This is stuff that, again, these tools I'm giving you, this is stuff that will work with your family. It'll work with your future family. It'll work with your friends, and it's going to work in the workplace. These are things that we look for at ComRes when we hire people. The second tip I'm going to give you is something called validation. So this is something that you can role play with friends and things like this. This is almost a little advanced. So validation is actually a term that you learn. It's a part of a type of relationship therapy called imago. It comes from the word imagine. So it's spelled I-M-A-G-O if you Googled it. So imago therapy is used, for example, it's kind of used in the Middle East peace process when leaders try to get Israel and Palestine to come together to talk about their differences. Imago therapy is a way of getting people to sit down and talk and tell what they want, identify what they want. But one of the tenets of Imago therapy is called validation. So what is validation? Validation is kind of affirming or making sure you understand what somebody is saying or what they want you to do, especially if there's conflict. If somebody's yelling at you, validation is key. So how do you do that? And I don't know, I didn't put that slide thing in there. So one way to validate things is, and again, this one key phrase here, I've taught my own people this over the years. I keep drilling into them. I'm really amused when they say it back to me, but learn how to say this phrase over and over. What I hear you saying is, and then repeat it back to them. So let's say somebody's yelling at, let's say it's a boss in the workplace saying, you know, I told you to I told you to get this order done, or I told you, I'm trying to think of an example in jobs you guys might have right now. You know, I told you to get this order done on time. Okay. One thing to try to de-escalate conflict is to repeat it back and again validate it. And it starts with this phrase: "What I hear you saying is you're upset because I didn't get this order done on time." Or if it's a friend, they're upset with you because you were supposed to go to the movies with them and bailed. It's like, and they start yelling at you and say, "Hey, look, what I hear you saying is you're upset with me because I didn't go to the movies with you last night." You don't make an excuse. You don't say, "I had homework to do. My parents won't let me go. I had other friends I wanted to be with." What you do is you validate what their concern is. And the way that you do it is starting out by saying, "What did I hear? What I heard you saying is," and this is something you can role play with friends, your parents, and anybody. This is one of the most important tools you'll have in life. If you learn this one phrase and learn how to use it well, I'm telling you, you're not only going to do well in the workplace, you're going to be happier in your family life. And you know, I haven't put guarantees on this, but you're going to make more money. And you will, because people around you will see that you're more effective at getting things done. You don't cause conflict, you help get rid of it, you help solve it. So what I hear you saying is an important phrase. Find out what it is that people really want. What is it that they're really saying? Um, I don't know why these things are in here. So what are the kind of steps of using this? Repeat what you heard. Okay. I don't know if you ever played the game. When I was a kid, I remember going to camp one time and we all sat in a circle and we went and we whispered to the person to our right. It says, "Hey," we whispered something like, "The boat goes down the stream." And we're given a phrase to say, and then that person would lean to the person on the right and whisper it. By the time it got around the circle and got all the way around to the person on your left and I repeated to you, it was no longer "the boat went down the stream." It was something completely different because people kept hearing and changing it just slightly. By the time it got around, it might not even be about a boat. It might not even be about a stream. That's how communications works. I'm in the communications industry, so this is important to me. You have to get communications correct. So the first, you know, this thing about validation and saying what I heard you saying is you have to repeat what you thought you heard, because often, you know, if you played that same game with people in a circle, if people would just repeat it and say, "Wait a minute, did you just say the boat goes down the stream?" And the person goes, "Yes." Now you got the story straight, and then you can repeat it to the person next to you. So how do you do that in validation? Well, you repeat it. "I heard you saying I need to take out the garbage every Friday by 4 o'clock. I need to get these orders in the system by 2 o'clock every afternoon." And then ask, "Did I get it right?" You know, ask if it was correct. Okay. So guess what? This is like software programming. Maybe you have experience in software programming. It's like these routine commands that you write that you go back and start at the step one again. So if I get to step one here and say repeat what you've heard, I ask them it's correct. It says, "Well, no, that's not correct." They state it. Guess what? You go right back to step one. You go right back to repeat what you heard. So what I heard you saying is you want the orders out by 2. Is that correct? Yes, but I want them out every day, but especially on Thursdays. Okay, so then I go back to step one. What I heard you saying is that you need the orders out every day by 2, but especially on Thursdays. Is that correct? When they finally say yes and don't add anything, then you can move on to the next step, which is finally confirmations. Like, and then what do you do? So when you validate somebody, you're kind of making them feel important. You're making sure that they know that you're listening to them, and this de-escalates conflict. It works 100% of the time. Um, and I'm not quite sure why this thing is doing this. Sorry about that. So an important part of validation that some people kind of mistake is you don't have to agree with the other person. Okay. So, let's say that somebody says, I don't like the way that you clean your room. Okay. And that could be a spouse, it could be your parents, whoever it is. It's like, I don't like the way you clean your room. You may not agree with them. That's fine. Again, you still use the same validation process to say, what I hear you saying is you don't like the way I clean my room. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. Okay, good. Because then the next step of Imago is asking, or saying what they want you to change. You don't have to agree with the other person. You don't have to say, you're right, I'm lousy at cleaning my room. That's not part of this process. It's simply stating, I heard what you said, and empathizing. So when you get to the end and you've validated, you understand that they don't like the way you clean your room, the last part is empathizing. So making a statement such as, I understand that you don't like the way I clean my room. Is that agreeing with them? No, but it's empathizing with them. You understand. So you got the story right. There's no room for error here. You understand what they want. You've tried to de-escalate the situation. So any questions?
If you have any questions so far, go ahead and put them in the chat box, please.
So another variation, I'm sorry. So another variation of saying what I heard you saying is saying I'm confused. Okay. So this is a great thing I've used through the years to handle conflicts with my customers. For example, I'll have customers a lot. Sometimes customers are unreasonable. They want things that aren't fair. They want something done today that's going to take 6 weeks to do. There's no way for me to fix that. But sometimes they don't, even when we do what I consider an outstanding job, they may say, I don't like the way you did that. So I've had customers also change their mind. So a common thing can be is a customer says, "Hey, look, I want this phone system installed by on Friday. We're moving on this Friday, so I need you guys here. We need to move on Friday." Says, "Okay." All of a sudden, I get this call Thursday saying they're very upset at me. Like, "Where are you? Where are you people? Why aren't they here? We're moving tomorrow." Okay, that's conflict. Okay, and I could immediately say, "Sir, you told me you're moving Friday." Well, that's creating conflict. So what I do is I use a common thing like, I'm confused. Perhaps I misunderstood something. I'm confused. What I thought I heard you say was that you're moving on Friday. Yes, but you need to be here Thursday. Ah, I understand. So your concern is that because you're moving Friday, you think my people need 2 days to move you. Is that kind of what I'm hearing? Yes, of course. I understand. Okay, well, actually, I've got a team of guys. I don't have just one person. I've got a team of 15 employees, so we can actually move you in 2 or 3 hours. Maybe I didn't make that clear, but now I understand why you'd be upset at me because you think that I need more time to do this. I really don't. We'll take care of you. I promise we're going to be there tomorrow at 2 o'clock. That's one example of how I deal with an upset customer like that. Same goes for employees. Like let's say an employee is looking for something, that I committed to. It could be some type of employee benefit. It could be something we're supposed to do at the office. Um, you know, uh, you know, just because I'm the boss doesn't mean I'm a dictator. I don't get to call all the shots. So when my people ask for something, I'm responsible too. And so they'll come in upset because they'll say, "Hey, I thought we're going to have this new policy. I thought we are going to have, for example, a couple of years ago, we took away take-home vehicles. My technicians all used to have, that was one of their benefits. They used to have uh, cars that they could drive home so that if they had to leave right away in the morning to go to a customer, they didn't have to drive in the office to pick up a vehicle. The problem with that is it's very expensive for me. And at the same time, sometimes employees would, kind of break the rules and then they'd use that car for their own personal benefit. They go get groceries in it. That's not what it was there for. Well, the jobs have changed. It used to be 20 years ago, we needed vehicles to go do our work. Now we do most of our work by programming. So that was really tough. I had to, tell people, I had to prep them for it. I gave them 6 months notice. I said, look, you're not going to have take home vehicles anymore. And a few of them came back and said, well, then I have no vehicles. Like, yeah, you must have had a vehicle before you came to work here. So it's not my job to provide you with a vehicle for all of your needs. So we would have to go through this and say, I'm a little confused. When did I say that you didn't have to have a personal vehicle for anything? So that's an example of conflict resolution. It's another way of saying what I heard you saying was, say, I'm confused. Help me to understand this. These are the kind of words that help avoid or diffuse conflict. We talked about that conflict resolution. It's not about you, it's about them. It's about listening and not trying to fix things. You can't fix the other person's problem. It's mostly about listening and trying to make sure that they know that you're listening to them. Meet with an objective third party. This is something we didn't quite go over, but in EOS traction, one of the things that we do is, um, like for the example we talked about with my admin, is so when she's having problems with other people in the company, what we do is we get the direct report, the supervisor in there, and we get her and the other person involved in it, and we sit down and we talk. And one of the first things that we do is we ask both of them to sit there and listen and not judge people. It's kind of a version of this imago therapy, is that we ask them to state what's going on. And so let's say the person says, hey, when Jill emails this kind of language, and here's an example, of Jill sending an email to me, it was very rude. Okay, I understand. How does that make you feel when that happens? Well, it makes me feel like I'm not worth anything, or it makes me feel like she doesn't like me, or something like that. So when we get done, we go to Jill and we say, Jill, are you upset with Bob? Well, no, not really. Well, do you think there's anything wrong? It's like, well, yeah, I don't like Bob. Sometimes he doesn't seem like he listens to me. Well, how does it make you feel when Bob doesn't listen to you? And then Jane shares it. So when we get done with this, we kind of sit there and we get them to work it out. We get them to talk to each other. And sometimes, almost every time, we find out that the other person was assuming things. Like they thought the person didn't like them. They thought the person was being rude. It was mistaken. It wasn't that at all. It's just that they don't know how to handle conflict well. They don't know how to express what they want. They don't know how to listen to people. Um, you know, after they've had parties, we just talked about that. Have parties say what they felt, and ask them what they've heard. And this is kind of funny. We actually established a safe word, which is, and the funny thing is, we've had this done with several employees and it works. I have one with my partner. I have a partner, Chris. I love him to death. We've been partners for almost 20 years, but sometimes we don't get along. And he's a very hot-headed guy, and I'm very, domineering in what I want. And sometimes we butt heads. And we've got a safe word, let's say baseball. And it's not invoked very much, but it's really used in a conversation where one of us starts being the bully and starts wanting our way and starts, this is the way things are going to be, and pounding the gavel and things like that. And the safe word is meant to bring up. And the way the safe word is used is you have to have an agreement between the two parties that say, look, we don't share this with anybody. No one else has to know, but this baseball is our safe word. And if you hear that word baseball, you immediately the agreement is you stop and you listen to the person, you know they're upset, you know they're about to blow, and you stop. And you either agree this, let's come back and revisit this in 10 minutes, let's take a breather, or let's talk this through. It's especially used in our environment. Let's say that I'm in a meeting with 5 or 6 of my people and I have a problem with Chris. I don't want to embarrass him in that meeting. I want to be able to kindly say um, a word like baseball so he gets that I'm upset. I don't like the way he acted. I thought he was rude, but without having to stop the meeting and embarrass him or make it seem awkward. So these are things that you can use with friends. They can be used with family members, but it does work. Questions?
Yeah, Mitch, there's a question that asks, do you let employees handle their own conflicts? And if so, or if not, when do you plan to intervene?
Yeah, we do. That's it is our policy. So we actually have an employee handbook, and in there, we encourage them to do it themselves first. We give them guidelines for it. We say, look, don't. Life's too short to have a bad working environment. So try to work out yourself. It's always best. What doesn't work is don't talk to other people about it. That's not going to solve it. Talk to the person you're having an issue with, and the agreement in our company is you should listen. Okay. If that doesn't work, then you pull your direct report into it, your supervisor, and try to get them to intervene to listen to both sides. If that doesn't work, the policy is to escalate till eventually it gets to me and I get involved. And we also kind of, we're not that big, but we have ways of trying to get the direct reports involved. But if that person, sometimes that person is possibly the issue. So then we have to go over their head. We're a very open company. No one has any, emotions or egos that says, hey, look, somebody went over my head in our company. Like a larger company, you would have a problem. We're not big enough to have an HR department, for example. So, we kind of do this and say, look, try to work out yourself first. If you can't, get your supervisor involved. The supervisor then calls a meeting, like we just said, to go through these steps that we just laid out. We get to an agreement, and then they set a meeting for the 30 days out. And then in that meeting, we get together to find out if the conflict was resolved. And in 90% of the cases, they both say it's fine, we're done, we're good, we're happy. But in a few cases, then we still have to have the talk, and then we have to set another meeting 30 days out again. But we really emphasize, trying to use the safe words, which has worked at work. But in one of the cases, the person forgot it. So the other person used the safe word, and the person didn't catch it and just kept going and talking and making it worse. And so, but it's something that as a business owner, you'll always deal with. You have to deal with conflict. You have to learn how to manage it and learn that it's normal, but try to make it healthy and try to make people see that you will listen to both sides. You don't fault them for it. But that is our policy. Other questions?
Let's see. All right, no other questions so far.
Okay. I mean, this isn't easy stuff. Like I said, I've learned this over the course of 30 or 40 years. This takes a while, but it takes practice. It will seem awkward at first. But again, the things you can read up about are like imago therapy, the book Traction. I can send you these slides, Brianna, if you want to copy the people that want to copy, that's fine. But use this type of stuff, but practice makes perfect. The stuff like validation takes practice. What I hear you saying, that takes practice. Like if you have a problem at work, involve your folks with it. Go home and say what you're trying to do and say, I want to practice. I want to role play. I want you to be me. I'm going to be this other person. And sometimes it's helpful to have somebody else practice with you and take the other side and be you, so you can kind of see yourself and try to practice that, so that when you really have to deal with a person, you know how. This gets easier over time. I tell you what, my life is a lot less stressful once I've learned these things. But once in a while, something gets under my skin, and yeah, I mean, I was practically having a conflict right here before the call started. My wife texted me what the alarm password was, and I gave it to her, and then she was upset because that's not it, and she went a different type of code or something. It's like it just happens all the time. It's life. It works, and so you just have to be calm, and that's pretty much it. Brianna, that's about all I had for today. Is there any other
Okay, so
questions or?
at this time, students, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box. And these don't have to be questions about conflicts. They can be questions about Mitch or his company if you have any questions about any of those things.
Yeah, while we're waiting, I will tell you this, is that when you have a company or organization where you've learned to address conflict, you'll find that you get a lot more done with a lot less people, because you have everybody kind of working in the same direction. So if you ever plan on owning a company, learning to manage conflict is extremely important to you. And as I said, we look for this in our company. We look for it when we interview people, that people understand how conflict works, how to resolve it. If they come on board and within 90 days we see that they don't fit in or they aren't very good with conflict, we kind of move on. There's just no way we can use that kind of person in our culture because they just will never fit. It doesn't matter how smart they are, how well they do their job. If they don't fit with the rest of the people, they're always going to be causing an issue.
Okay, Mitch, so we have some questions that came in.
Sure.
Chasten said, sorry, I came in a little late, but what exactly is your company? So they want some insight on what your company is.
Sure. The name of my company is ComRes. It's short for communications research. So we do business telephone systems. We install and service phone systems for companies like Universal Property Insurance, even Junior Achievements. We do hosted VoIP systems. So people like Vonage or RingCentral, you might have heard of. We sell systems and services like that. We do phone and computer cabling. So in a business, you see the jacks in the wall where people plug their phone or computer into. We install the cable inside the wall for that. We install surveillance cameras and card readers, like the type of things you see in a hotel room that you swipe the card into your room. We install systems like that.
Okay, the next question was from Anna. She asked, do you find it stressful for you to manage employees and manage their conflicts?
There are comp rates.
She asked, you need me to repeat the question?
What was the last part? Comp rates?
No, manage their conflicts. So the question asked, do you find it stressful for you to manage employees and manage their conflicts?
I don't understand that last word or two.
Manage their conflicts.
Conflicts. I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. So I find management difficult. I'm not a very good manager. My partner is, fortunately. I'm more of, if you read the book EOS Traction, I'm more of a visionary. I'm a good leader. I lead by example, but I'm horrible at the day-to-day management of tasks. But when it comes to conflict, yes, I am pretty good at it. I'm not stressed out by it. I used to be afraid of conflict. I ran from it. It made me a very poor business owner, but now I've kind of learned to do that and I'm very good at it. I kind of welcome it because I know it's a chance to improve the company. The worst problems I have in the company is when people hide conflict. They hide an issue and it festers and then they leave or cause a problem so somebody else leaves. So I kind of enjoy working with it.
Okay. A question from Debbie. She asked, have you had to fire anyone over too much conflict?
I've been in business a long time. I believe I have. I can't think of an example right now. Let me give you a good example though. I heard you may not remember him, but a great NFL football coach, Jimmy Johnson, coach for the Dolphins, coach for the Cowboys. He was speaking one time of people say, do you treat everybody fairly? He says no. He says I don't. He says, look, Troy Aikman at the time was a Super Bowl, champion quarterback. He says if Troy Aikman comes into meeting late, I'm going to tap him on the shoulder and say, hey, Troy, don't do that again. But if a rookie is trying to make the team do the same thing, he'd get rid of them. And it's the same way in business is, yes, I will get rid of somebody that's causing conflict if they're not a real good producer. But if they're a top producer, I'm going to try to work things out with them. But have I gotten rid of people? Yeah, I've had a few people that were just absolutely, they were they were just horrible, including a guy that I tried to acquire about a year and a half ago. He was so bad, he caused serious problems in my company. The only reason I put up with it was that I was trying to buy him out, and I was trying to make it work. But I've never met a more vile person that said hateful and mean things about me and all of my employees. And I couldn't wait to get rid of him.
Okay. Another question that came in is how do you identify that trait in an interview? And do you use any other tools for hiring? And I'm assuming by that trait, they mean, you said earlier, you look for core values. I'm assuming that's what they mean.
Right. Correct. So the way that we try to do that up front, it's not always successful, but we do try to do that in the interview process. No, we do not use other tools like PSI or personality profiles. But what we do is we do try to ask questions around our core values. So like, again, I said one of our core values is task oriented. We like to get stuff done. We'll work on anything because we take pride in solving tough puzzles. Okay. But if I ask you in an interview, hey, are you task oriented? Of course you're going to tell me yes. Or if I ask you, are you customer service oriented? You're going to tell me yes. There's a way to ask that question that reveal the same thing, which is, like I said, give me an example of a time that you got a call from a customer at 4:55 on a Friday afternoon, and they need you to come out to fix something. How did that? And all of us in the service industry have had that. If you haven't had that, you haven't been working very long. And if you did, and you give me that example to make sure you're not making it up, I'll say, fine, can I have that person's name and phone number so I can call to verify this? Okay. And right away they realize they're on the spot. I do a lot of things like that in interviews to ask people, to find out, do they fit our core values? But the same thing with conflict. I'll ask them about conflicts they've had with people at work. And again, I always finish by saying, that's a great example. Do you mind if I contact that person or email them to verify that story? But I want to know that. I do want to know that they're that type of person. I try to find out if people are liars. Everybody lies. It's normal. But, I want to know their communication skills. One of the questions I ask in an interview is I'll ask them, hey, what do you like to do for fun? And whatever they say first, let's say, oh, I like to golf. Or they might look on my walls, my pictures to see what I do, and they'll repeat something like that. Whatever it is they say first, I don't care how many things they say golf first, I'll say, great. So when's the last time you golfed? Oh, well, I've been kind of busy. Haven't been there in 6 months. So the person's lying. They're trying to give me an answer that they thought I wanted. Okay, so I'll follow up to try to find out what that trait is, well, when's the last time you did it? If the favorite thing you like to do is golf, you find, I know golfers, they golf every week. They find a reason to golf. They will golf before they go to work. And so that's what they do. It's important to them. If it's the first words out of their mouth, it better be what they say. And then I'll follow up with, oh, they golfed last week. I says, great. But how often do you golf? I golf at least once a week. I know they're telling the truth. And they're not trying to fake me out in the interview.
All right. Well, you guys, if you have any additional questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat box. In the meantime, Fabi, I know you have some announcements to wrap up.
Hey, sorry, I was muted. We're going to start doing a survey about the session after each session. So I'm going to send the link in the chat box. Please just take a few minutes to do it. It's like 2 questions. And then on Friday, we're going to have a bit of an investment talk with Will Cyrus of Cyrus Consulting, 2 p.m., same place. So we'll email you guys that. But please take the time to do the survey. It's really just 2 questions.
Also, if you haven't signed in, please make sure that you do that as well. All right. And Mitch, we want to thank you for your time today. Great discussion on conflict resolution. Thank you so much for talking to our career bound student.
You got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.